Welcome, dirty peasants, to episode 73 of Wartwood Gazette, the Amphibia podcast. This week we'll be covering a couple of leftover thoughts I had on uh, a couple of episodes in the show. I'm your host, Thematicon, and joining me today is Impact.
Yo, what's good, everybody?
So, news this time around, I can't think of anything. Can you?
No, nothing official. Um, and Matt still hasn't given. I forget what was that Barnes and Nobles thing. I know we said it was delayed on the ticket thing, but he hasn't given an official announcement about it still. So yeah, nothing concrete. Um, as of now in terms of Amphibia content. Maybe besides fan stuff, um, if we could give a shout out to that. I mean, there's there's Crispy's. I want to give it official introduction, but if you guys haven't heard already, there's this really cool Amphibia beat 'em up game made by Crispy, um, called Amphibia Calamity Beatdown. I know Matt made the title screen for it too, and he's been working on it for a hot minute, and it's really fun. I think I could put the link on in the maybe in the comment section of this video, or I could just give you the link for it.
Like,
But
I think because I saw the project too. Like, I already downloaded the demo. I kind of want to cover it in a separate segment.
that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. I
So,
guess I just wanted to give it a shout out.
but yeah, it's
So
it's really like neat stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. I know like one of our past like a friend of the show, Dennis. He also like he made some of the sprites for the game too. So I'd
that's
probably want to have
awesome.
him on too, like with you too, Impact, because I know you're up to speed with, like you stay up to date with like the progress on that game.
Yep.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. Uh, yeah. Aside from that, yeah, this week's recording is gonna be kind of like a breather. Like last time we wrapped up our coverage of the Marcy Journal, and that kind of covers like all official like amphibia content that's out there. Um, but and at the time of this recording, this is the March 24th, 2023. March 28th, 2021 is when we started the podcast. So it's going to be about this recording's coming out in April, but it's going to be about like 2 years since we started the podcast, which
Damn,
is interesting.
time flies, yo.
Yeah, it does not feel like 2 years. Um, yeah, but and I was able to like be a part of most of the recordings, like most of the episode discussions, but I missed out on a couple, like um the shut in, sleepover to end all sleepovers, and day at the aquarium, Newts and Tights, and fight or flight. So this is kind of like a breather recording where I kind of just like wanted to kind of like go over those episodes again. Usually when I do like the podcast, I'd like watch the episode right before the recording. And even though I've seen like the shut in and a day at the aquarium and sleepover, 10 all sleepovers, like I've seen them like so once or twice over like I've rewatched them already like once or twice like since then. Newts and Tights, I was rewatching that. I think okay, I feel like um usually when people say like, oh, they watched the episode and then they did a rewatch, for me it's like, oh, okay, like it's natural to like already have a rewatch. So it's like a second rewatch. That's like new like territory for me. It's like I've only rewatched the episode once. Like that's barely anything at all. Like, but I guess I'm gonna start off with the shut in, and like thankfully, Impact, you're here to kind of like bounce off me, like bounce off my idea, like off my thoughts. Otherwise, it just would be me speaking into the mic.
Speaking to the void.
Yeah, into the void, into like my wall, like the brick meme. But um, like I'm not gonna do like the recap thing. That's like
Yeah, we've been over these episodes.
yeah, whoever's listening to this
We
is
know what they're
probably
about.
like yeah, just go watch that recording like Nick and Impact and whoever else was on at the time.
Pickle.
They did a great job doing that recap
Yeah,
without me.
Pickle was on there too.
Yeah, like I'm pulling up the YouTube playlist right now just to like see like who was there at the time. But yeah, the shut in it was Impact, Nick, and uh Pickle. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, this episode, the shut in, like you guys already covered like, oh, is it canon? Is it not canon? But now that like uh actually in our interview with Matt, that's when Matt kind of said, okay, I'm ready to make like the shut in canon. So, but like
Yeah.
when we did this recording, it's like, oh, it's like it's not canon, but it could fit, but we're not sure. But even though the stories themselves were like probably like were probably fake, it's just like I mean, to be honest, okay. Obviously, like I know Phone Mo is non-canon because Aaron was just making that shit up like along the way. Like,
Yeah.
um, I forgot the name of Hop Hop story.
Oh shit, I forgot it too.
I'm looking it up on the wiki
Um
right now. I know Spriggs was called Skin Deep.
yeah, because with the I forget what the frog is called, but the frog with all the skins.
The seamstress. Okay,
Yes,
Hop
there we
Hops
go.
was called Dead End. Um, like Okay, for me, Dead End was the funniest, but Skin Deep I think was like the best short or the best story for me.
Like creepiness wise, or just like in general writing wise.
Uh Dead End I think was the creepiest because like Little Pot, he would just like walk in like, so casually and walk out while like the people they were visiting were just dying. Like Dead End had the more like unsettling kind of horror, while like the seamstress was just like a terrifying like design.
Yeah,
And I think this
so I
episode
think like
won an award for. Was this the episode that won like an Annie for like design?
I remember the episode getting a reward. I think you're right. I feel like you would know that more than me, Thumb. To be honest, like I remember this episode getting something. So I'm assuming you're right that it's an Annie. But I know we got a reward for some place, big animation wise or another. I think like didn't a couple other Amphibia episodes get that too, like all in? Or am I bugging? I don't remember. Not like for the specific reward for this episode, because this was for design, right? So like,
Yeah, this was for character
I f-
design 2021.
yeah, I feel like I know Amphibia's gotten a little bit more, right, from like all in and the hardest thing and stuff. So,
In no, it got nominated in 2023 and
oh
2022, but it didn't win.
damn, okay,
Yeah, but the shut-in won, which is
huh,
I mean, yeah, I would have expected like yeah. It all depends on like the category and whatever. But yeah, like the shut-in
yeah,
was a really I was a really solid episode. Like I'm a Hop Hop fan, so it's like George Takai was like really great as Mr. Little Pot, and yeah, like the hair joke was like hilarious. Um,
Yeah, biggest loss of the episode.
yeah, and it's like Death wasn't there for Hop Hop; it was there for his hair. That was like I think that's what made it kind of like the funniest episode for me. Like, um, but his Skin Deep, it's like the Spivey stuff was cute, and then like the seamstress showing up, kind of just like just horrifying, and then yeah,
I feel like
Phone
everything
was.
with Skin Deep is like.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, wait, I didn't hear you for a second. Keep going, Thumb.
No,
I
no,
think you cut off on my end.
I just because I was talking about so much about Dead End and Skin Deep, I kind of like skipped over Phone Mo, but like it was all right. Like, I mean, it's pretty funny with the video, like the haunted video stuff. Like that gave me very like a lot of like early 2000s early 2000s vibes. Uh, but like I just like the Dead End Skin Deep stuff more because like it was in Amphibia and
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like though, like, because Phone Mo was really. I know, obviously, we had the reunion and Marcy at the Gates flashbacks, but those are always focused on Anne's relationship to Sasha and Marcy. And even though it's not canon, I do like that we have an episode in the school specifically. That was always kind of neat. It was interesting that in 3A, like I wouldn't want Anne to go back to school during this season, but like it's interesting when we come back to Earth that we never actually get to see. Well, we do obviously in All In, but we never get an episode specifically at the school. You know what I mean? So I always thought that was neat, and it was kind of, yeah. I don't know. I always appreciated that,
yeah, definitely
but I
like
do agree the other stories are better.
yeah, I think it's because like with the other stories, it's like there's like even though some of the stuff is like exaggerated, it's like there's a chance that maybe these stories like kind of actually happened. But with Phone Mo, it's like
Yeah.
you kind of immediately know that it's like it's not a real story. Like if it was like something at least with like if they made it a horror story with Marcy Ann and Sasha, like where okay, some stuff could be exaggerated because it's a cartoon, but like there could be still some
Yeah.
like plausibility that it's like that actually happened. Um, and Impact, like I'm not like a huge like I'm not like the biggest like Sasha Marcy Ann trio fan, but it's like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would have been
yeah.
like something neat to have in this like little kind of like in this like Halloween episode. I think a lot of fans would have liked that.
I weirdly enough, I feel like Sleepover, the end all sleepovers, like kind of gave me enough of that vibe, like not horror vibe, but like that episode gives me enough of like because we have like the shadowfish would kind of act like ghost and whatnot. I feel like that episode satisfied that want for me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I feel
yeah,
like we would have gotten something similar.
I have a very like specific like analogy for the sleepover episode. I mean, we can get into it now.
Okay.
Like, I'm kind of done talking about the show,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
what I liked a lot about the like sleepover and end all sleepovers, it kind of felt like a direct to TV Scooby Doo movie. Where, cause for the Scooby Doo shows, it's like always like the villain or the monster is usually like a guy in disguise. But then for the Scooby Doo like animated movies, it's usually like something actually supernatural. So like that's why I gave you that's why I describe it as like direct to TV like Scooby Doo movie because it's like the shadowfish are real. Then you have like the teenage gang kind of like off on a little like spooky adventure.
That's good. Okay, and with the Scoob joke too,
Yeah,
like
the scoop joke too. That's what like I like made that stick with me. That weird like example of me like watching Scooby Doo movies in my childhood. But yeah, the sleepover and end all sleepovers like I don't know. I feel like so much has already been said about this episode. That's like very like yeah, that's like completely like true and describes everything. Like I can probably say more about this pair of episodes, like with this and A Day at the Aquarium after, but this episode had a
right
lot
to
of
it.
pardon?
Oh no, you go thumb. Sorry, sorry. You
Okay,
go. You go.
like it kind of covers like Anne and Marcy's relationship with Sasha. Kind of like Sasha doesn't need to be there, but it's kind of like addressed, and I think Pickle brought that up during your episode discussion at the time. Um, and like this episode did a lot of the kind of like setup for the rest of the series with a lot of like certain threads about like even the sleepover thing kind of like that coming back. um I can probably yeah, everything about like the leaf barrel and Andrew's stuff I think is already was already covered well, and
Yeah.
shadowfish. I mean, Impact, is there anything you want to talk about before I go into A Day at the Aquarium?
Not. I feel like we covered pretty much everything. I feel like I don't know, because Sleepover and Sleepover is such an interesting like mid-season kind of episode because it weirdly is like one of the most important episodes in the show, but it kind of like hides itself from being important, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
until the very end, where the characters are just like, oh, there's the Shadowfish, there's the Mossmen, there's Andreas's like hint to his backstory, like they're like, because Olivia and Yuna is gonna handle all this stuff eventually, but like it's interesting how the show can just throw a bunch of lore at you and then just not focus on that and focus more on the characters and that dynamic. Just kind of like a whole thing of the show. I mean, like lore is there, but it's like, it's around. Like it's more about like the characters and their struggles in the story. But I don't know, like this episode I always feel like has that fun balance of being a great stuff for Anne and Marcy and Sprig and Polly, but also giving us that plot progression, which is fun. Also, I like Marcy bouncing off the cast a bit more. I kind of feel like she did that better than Sasha did in 3B, to be honest. So
yeah,
when I think about it, like, yeah,
yeah. Like I agree with that. Like the show, it kind of like when it drops the lore, it kind of it still kind of focuses on it, even though they don't talk. Like okay, even the show does address it, where it's like they have the Moss Man like show up for a second and like and focus on it. Then you have like the ripped up portrait, and then like Sprig kind of addresses that. So it's like they don't elaborate, but they still kind of like the show's like still pointing at and saying like, hey, like this is important. So then when you have that kind of like scene of like Anne like just like cutting her like getting a paper cut, and the show kind of like lingers on it. I don't know why that was the case, and even you guys I think mentioned how that was kind of like weird for the show to kind of like linger on like Anne getting a paper cut. Maybe it was supposed to say like, oh okay, like the scared air challenge is dangerous. I don't know. Like I haven't seen an
I
answer for
think
that.
I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it in the recording. I forget exactly what I said, but I think how I always thought of the paper cut was like because she gets a paper cut as soon as she talks about going to the basement, right?
Yeah,
So
it's like,
like,
oh, they're going to get hurt, basically, right?
yeah, like it's like a bad omen kind of thing. Well, not bad omen, but like it's a bad idea, and then she immediately gets a paper cut. I always thought that was signifying, hey, don't go there. Like bad things are gonna happen if you do. So I don't know. That's how I read it. Also, I thought it was just like kind of a joke. So, but yeah, I didn't think it was like hardcore hinting at anything. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I don't know. But I guess it was just like to keep the idea that going down the basement is bad, like, and just kind of signifying it through that. So
I do remember that episode kind of like because when the show does like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like they had that montage and like they were drawing like mustaches on like a bunch of like portraits of Andreas. And then later when Olivia's sleeping, like Polly pulls out that same marker to like draw on Olivia's face, and it's like the show kind of like does when it wants to, it kind of introduces stuff and then like brings it up later to kind of like continue the gag or yeah, I guess continue the gag, but like in this case, it's kind of more of a the paper cut thing was just like a weird like gag that wasn't carried over. If that, I'm kind of just like rambling now, but
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
yeah. So I think I covered everything I wanted about sleepovers, the sleepover episode. I for this is such. I remember this recording was like a pain to write in the podcast uh not podcast the YouTube like title because like the sleepover to end all
Oh,
sleepovers and then a day at the aquarium, they're both like super long like episode titles. I couldn't fit them all in the 100 character limit. And I ended up compromising with the sleepover to end all, and then I just didn't finish that, and then I wrote a day at the aquarium, but like that was like hitting the character limit because I always put like write down like Wartwood Gazette, the Amphibia
both.
podcast, and then both episode titles. And like I never had that issue until this episode.
How big the yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna refer to this episode as like just sleepover, but like um, can I go on to a day at the aquarium?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, like like now that we're talking about like a day at the aquarium, I can kind of like bring up sleepover when I say the next couple of like points. It's kind of like this episode not only did it have to be like a mid-season finale, it had to for season 2, it had to be kind of like a mid-season, I don't want to say finale, but mid-season mid-series finale for the show because this is
Yeah.
like the mid the like the midpoint. And
Yeah.
this episode definitely is in my opinion like the strongest mid-season batch of episodes we've had in the show. Like I do think it kind of like sets up and accomplishes what it wanted to do like very well. And when I like think about this episode in comparison to like Escape to Amphibia or um
Toe tax and prison break.
yeah, Toe Tax and Prison Break. And don't get me wrong, those are like I think they're both fantastic episodes. Like those season 1 and season 3 mid-season finales. I think they're like really good. But it's like there's a lot going on in Sleepover and A Day at the Aquarium. Like, and when you look at how much of it kind of like comes back, like how much it comes like full circle by the end. Um, like that's not to kind of that's not to discount Toe Tax and Escape to Amphibia because those are very important episodes for Anne. And
Yeah,
when it comes to like Anne's arc, it's those episodes are very like they're still like S tier episodes, just like A Day at the Aquarium and Sleepover kind of like do they are important episodes for Anne, like especially Day at the Aquarium, but they also for the whole series as well, kind of like tying everything together with like the Leaf stuff, the Andrew stuff. I know I'm still talking about Sleepover, but for the Day at the Aquarium, it's like just the just the setup of like the aquarium and what it means to Anne and how we end the series off with like Anne working at an aquarium, kind of like
yeah,
it really is kind of like a very like I don't like because apparently Matt always knew where like what he wanted Anne to be, like what kind of job she would be, because at the end by the end of the series, because
yeah,
in the AMA he mentioned that as a spoiler, and like
yeah. Because I think Matt even talked about this on Twitter. All the occupations of the girls was thought out like at the very start of the show. I'm pretty sure. So like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah. So like, he already had like Anne's working at aquarium, Sasha's a therapist, Sparcy's like doing comic book stuff. So yeah,
yeah, so just that and A Day at the Aquarium has like a lot of like callbacks to season one, and I think what makes it very like we've seen it like we've seen Matt talk about season one, how much he kind of like there's a lot of like okay, it's very easy like okay, obviously okay, I'm trying to think of a good way to word this. You know, Amphibia season one is not looked at, I guess, how do I say, yeah, critically looked at the same way season two and three are looked at. And
yeah,
what I mean by that is kind of like, people give like season two, a lot of like, I guess, a lot of thought, and then season three people give it a lot of thought, and then like expectations as well, which I kind of don't want to get into because I think we've already talked about that, and we'll probably talk about it in the future. But like for the context of today, it's like season one's not given its same kind of like respect that it deserves, but like it's very easy to defend season one when the show itself is kind of like treating it with the same amount of respect as you do. Because like you'll see shows kind of like when they reference like a past season, sometimes they'll kind of like throw like what's the trope called, like lampshade, or um they'll kind of like take the opportunity to kind of like just joke about like something in season one that wasn't like too uh that maybe
wasn't.
like maybe the crew, maybe the crew working behind the show kind of like wanted to like dig at season one or like a certain aspect of it. And even Amphibia, like they'll sometimes like bring up the fact where like characters like are learning life lessons and like learning life lessons again, or they have already learned this lesson. But Amphibia kind of like looks back at those episodes like in a very like almost kind of like loving way. Like there's like it's kind of like the way like the characters kind of like reminisce about past episodes. Like it makes you invested in the episode when the characters like it makes the audience is invested in these past episodes more when the characters themselves are invested in those past episodes too. Like we see like a day of the aquarium is basically the planners just crying about like all their past memories.
Yeah.
So like of course like the audience is gonna be like on board with that because like it makes us like reminisce about those like simpler times too. And then part of this whole episode setting up is like, oh, Anne has to eventually say goodbye to the planners, and most of the time it's played up in like a comedic way, but then like near the end of the episode, they're going to see each other again, but it's kind of like the trial run for the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Anne can't even Anne like what's the word?
She
Anne
can't
can't even
process it.
do it. Like yeah, like she hasn't learned the lessons necessary in the show to kind of get it, which is like
She
yeah,
hasn't she
again,
hasn't
it
learned to let
makes
go yet.
yeah, yeah, and she hasn't had that time with her parents too and building that dynamic. But I won't go into that. But like, yeah, yeah, that's really right.
And yeah, like I, I kind of I kind of mentioned in the Marcy like journal coverage where it's like Anne choosing the planners over Marcy. It's like I wanted to see Anne see the planners again, but it's like and it's not to Anne. It's not Anne's fault, but the fact that she left Marcy left her like very like vulnerable to
And
like
it's sealed their fate.
yeah, it kind of like decided the rest of the series where like Marcy was like in a vulnerable like place for Anne just to kind of like just swoop in and start like planting ideas in Marcy's head that like if Anne was there would probably catch on. Um,
Yeah, and it's like, and it's one of those things too where like not even like just catch on, but like even like in the moment, like when they meet Andreas, there's what's the word? Like Marcy and Anne are both not questioning anything about the guy because Marcy trusts Andreas, so Anne naturally trusts Andreas too. There's never any question about his motivations or his desires. Even once like Anne and figures out what Hot Pot was thinking about the Calamity Box and what the book said, there still isn't that thought of like maybe we shouldn't give this to Andreas. You know what I mean? So which also kind of makes me wonder if like it does make me wonder even if Anne stayed with Marcy, would Andreas like would Anne figure out Andreas's bullshit? Like not fully, obviously, because she doesn't have the full details. You know what I mean? But like, would she be able to stop Andreas from doing all the whole manipulation thing? I always wonder if I feel like there's a chance that Andreas could. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
I haven't thought about it too much, but like, yeah, I think there's still a chance that Andrews could have still gotten away with like kind of manipulating Marcy. It's just like, but I think in that case, if Anne was with Marcy the whole time and then found out about like what Marcy really wanted to do, like about not going home just yet, and then I think Anne would be way more hurt than
What do you
if
mean? Like if she heard Andreas give the proposal to Marcy and Marcy agreed, then like that would give Anne like knowledge. I'm assuming Anne wouldn't tell Marcy that she knows about it, right? That would add like
no,
okay, I think I'm getting it now.
actually no no no
Because
like
like
like like Andrews wouldn't like if Andrews told Marcy about like don't go home just yet behind Anne's back and then like I imagine maybe like if the planners didn't come on the quest with Anne and Marcy to the temples, and then all this stuff happened. Like if the planners weren't there for the temple quest, and Anne chose Marcy over the planners in A Day at the Aquarium, then I feel like Anne would have been hurt a lot more. Because then she would.
Oh yeah, because then Marcy would be taking away Marcy. Well, kind of, but yeah, Marcy would be taking away her found family and stopping Anne from meeting her real family too.
Yeah.
She would be Jesus. That's messed up because now, like, yeah, ouch. I don't know if and like, wait, but they would still have to go to the planters and get the box though, right? Because I guess Marcy wanted someone to fetch the box.
Yeah, so that at that point, it's like we don't know if like I would imagine that the planners would want to come along on the temple quest with them.
Yeah, because but that's kind of a more interesting what if scenario if they don't though. Like, not like I want that in the show, but like for like fanfic writers, they could go nuts with having only Anne and Marcy go to the temples because I feel like that would easily create a bigger divide with Anne and Marcy in their time at the temples. You know what I mean? Because Marcy's having this good time, but Anne just lost like her family, and now it's like now it kind of makes Anne more determined to get to Earth now, and then Marcy's gonna be like, hold on, wait a second, maybe we can stay a little longer, and then the whole bullshit in True Colors happens. Because Anne doesn't even. Oh man, I'm talking about a whole what if scenario now.
Yeah,
But it's interesting. It's an interesting what if scenario.
but I do know like if Anne stuck with Marcy, Anne just wouldn't have the balls to kind of like tell about exploring other worlds in front of Anne.
Yeah.
Unless Anne just underestimated Anne that much, which maybe I don't know. But then at that point, Anne would probably be like, "Wait, no. Okay, now I'm thinking about another what if." So I'm probably getting too much into the.
No, it's interesting though, because I think like because I feel like because with how Andreas talks about Anne in All In, right? Like to Andreas, Anne wasn't even on his radar. On her radar. Yeah. Andreas Anne wasn't on his radar. There
Yeah,
we go. Like when she showed up, it was just like, who the fuck? Like scruffy little girl. Oh, like what? Okay,
with
like
leaves in her
because
hair and one shoe, like
yeah, like what is she gonna do? Like, which is interesting because like even like going to Sasha too with Andreas's review on him, like on Anne, like I'm assuming Andreas like knew somewhat about Sasha by the way Marcy was talking about her. Well, not. I'm assuming Marcy gave an idea of who Sasha and Anne were, right? So
yeah,
like I I always wonder if like Andreas was like, okay, I don't got to worry about one of them, but like the other one, where are they at? Like
yeah. We
they're
never
doing
get.
all kinds of other stuff.
Oh, sorry.
No, keep going, keep going. I'm done. I'm
No,
done.
I was just gonna say like we never get like Andrews never gives like a solid opinion on Sasha.
Yeah, which I'm kind of okay with because like I feel like because the show presents it so then like Andreas is Anne's foil and then Darcy is Sasha's foil, but it's
Yeah,
like because Darcy and Sasha they have to establish that like in the beginning of the end because they didn't give Darcy any more screen time, but like Anne and Andreas are set up like since True Colors, but like I don't know. I think Sasha and Andreas, like, there's an interesting dynamic there. I love like even in True Colors where like Sasha is like Andreas is like you're bluffing when Sasha's gonna like drop the box. I love that shit. I would have liked to gotten more of that, but I'm kind of cool with it with the way they handled it. But I don't know.
yeah, because like even in season two, kind of like Andrews was like always set up. Like Andrews was like Marcy's kind of like closest person in this world. So he already had that going on with Marcy, and then like post True Colors, like the Anne Andreas like rivalry becomes kind of like more clear.
Yeah,
So he had, and you could, and I remember a lot of people are like talking about how like Andrews could kind of like have like you can't really say oh like Andrews is Marcy's foil, Andrews is like Anne's foil, And then at the time, people were saying like, "Oh, like Andrews could be Sasha's foil." And it's like Andrews could like you could see Andrews in any of the girls. Like,
I feel like because he's a three-dimensional character, so it's like
yeah,
you kind of just make him a foil for anyone, I guess. I feel like, but I feel like with Anne and Anne, like I feel like once the core showed up, it was like, oh, I see what they're doing
yeah.
now.
Then it's like, okay, Andrews like is the Anne, like,
Yeah.
and then
So
even comparing like Anne, Sasha, and Marcy to like Andrews, Beryl, and Leaf, it's like you can't even do that because like they're all three-dimensional characters, even if they don't show up too long. Like,
yeah, yeah, because I don't know. That's that was an interesting thing. Cause like reading back on stuff with like theories on like who coordinates with who or like who's whatever's foil. Because now looking back at it, like even when I was like when I joined up in the fandom reading all that stuff, it was kind of funny. I was like Sasha and Andreas, I guess kind of they have. I guess they like power, but like we don't know anything about Andrea's backstory enough to go with that. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's it's fun to look back on now. So yeah,
and can I go into like Newts and Tights now?
yeah.
Okay, because I think while we're on the topic of Anne, just like I'll get back to the like Tritonio and Anne stuff, but having seen like the rest of the series and like revisiting Newts and Tights, it's like the the ending of Newts and Tights, where it's kind of like that whole scene involving that like the planners and Sasha discovering like Leaf's secret room. Um, that whole episode with like sort of like like Tritonio like reuniting like Tritonio reuniting with Anne and Sprig after so long, and Anne giving that whole like kind of like talk about like the value of friendship, and it's kind of like it's not like an uncommon like message like, oh, friendship is the greatest treasure of all, but like seeing like seeing Anne's like both these episodes, like both of those episodes in season three, Newts and Tights and Firefly, very like emphasize the friendship between Anne and Sprig in both
yeah,
segments, and it's kind of like our last like Spran adventure, Spran adventures, plural, um, but like Newts and Tights kind of like emphasizing that between like Spran and then also Tritonio and that name of that newt, Jojo, I think. um, like just like emphasizing the importance of these relationships, and then ending the segment off with like the Sprig like holding on to the note that like Leaf wrote for Andrews, even though like at the time we didn't know what exactly was on it, and that like ending up like being kind of the like having that note be what like pulls Andrews like back into like, how do I describe it? Like actually like, because like Andrews was in denial like for a long time, and then like just that note from Leaf kind of like changes everything and like makes him like fond of his friend again, like fond of Leaf again, and like that closure kind of being what saves everyone.
yeah, and like it's a word because that's kind of like because the whole time in the core and the king, right? Like Aldrich and the core are telling him like, "Yo, friendship, that shit sucks. Power, that's what it's all about, baby. Don't worry about your friends. They're gonna betray you." Like, because the whole idea is that like Aldrich is trying to like say, "Oh, your friends will betray you and whatever." So like, and it won't last forever, so it doesn't hold any value. But Andreas like is trying to believe that throughout season 2 in True Colors, right? And at first he's like, what's the word? Like throughout the whole time, he's pretty much trying to deny, like, nope, friendship doesn't matter. I don't care about my friends. They suck. Like they betrayed me, therefore they're bad. It ended, therefore it doesn't hold any value. So like, huh. And so then when he gets that letter, it sort of like it removes that toxic not toxic. Well, it is toxic, but like that embedded toxic mindset from the core. But then like when Andreas is like crying about leave, the core is trying to tell him the same shit. Always been saying like we are all you'll ever need, we are all you'll ever have. You know what I mean? You don't have to find anyone else. Friendship doesn't mean shit. Don't worry about that. So that's actually a really good point of how the leaf letter, even though we don't know what it says, has like an interesting thematic connection in Newts and Tights, an episode that revolves around understanding the values of friendship and those connections, and how leaving them behind isn't exactly like the healthiest thing to do. And in Andreas's case, it's more like him trying to ignore them and ignore that loss of his friends and how much he cared about them. So that's actually a good point. I always thought that the letter was, I'm gonna be honest, I thought it was just kind of random the way they find it, because like Hop Hop just finds it while he was using the bathroom. So like I don't know, but that's a good point.
Yeah, like I do think like looking back now, it's like I feel like that scene isn't as like kind of like spliced in as I think some people kind of like felt it was when it first came out. But I think Matt mentioned in like a really old interview, it's like this show is like when you rewatch the show, kind of like everything fits.
Connect together
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
and I think that yeah that was
I
that.
always.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say because I will say though, I still find it. I I guess like I said it before, like Hop Hop like finding the room when he's using the bathroom, and like I don't know why, but like I always found it funny how Sasha was so curious about what was in the door. Like she's so adamant to actually finding out what's in there. Like it's not even her house. It's like she broke in. Like she's so interested in like the belongings of the cave. I don't know why. I I always found that funny. Like
Oh, I think I told Nick about this, but it's like I love how like Sasha's like how do I describe it? Like Sasha, she kind of like came into this town. Like think about from the planner's perspective. The skull came into town, tried to kill the caretaker of the family, then then betrayed them, then pretended to be on their side, then betrayed them again, and then stayed in their house, and then desecrated their like sacred like their family heirlooms to turn it into like a war camp. And then where's the imagery, like the heron imagery, the same creatures that like killed their parents?
well, okay, I'll give Sasha this. I feel like she didn't want to use the planter home. You know what I mean? Because like the entire Wartwood got destroyed, right? So I'm assuming Sasha and Grime found it on some misfit adventure we don't know about. I don't know how
No, I think they
specifically, but
mentioned
like,
Loggle took them to it because Loggle's been down there with Hop Hop.
wait, really?
Yeah,
Oh shit, that's a good point.
yeah. I thought they
Yeah,
mentioned in the episode because because
did they?
yeah, because Family Shrub like at the end of the episode, like Hop Hop was like Hop Up had that like glue
Oh yeah, he
side
was
plot.
glued on to
Yeah, and then
the
like
back of
Lago was
him.
stuck on his back, and they both went into the base into like the family archives. So or the family
I don't
like
remember that. I don't remember them mentioning that. I gotta watch Commander Ann again because like I I just remember Sasha going like, Hop Hop was like, you're ransacking our house, and like Sasha's like only the basement, and then they go in. So not ransacking, but you're using our house, you know. But I don't remember Lago mention like Sasha mentioning Lago gave it. I have to go back. Maybe like because Sasha is kind of going at Mach 5 in the Commander and at the start with exposition.
oh yeah.
So maybe I missed that. So
But then the rest of Newts and Tights. I mean, I think Nick was kind of like my representative for the blue sword nonsense. Um, um, what else? Yeah, Chetonio coming back. That was like long overdue. I think because the moment, like not the moment, but for Combat Camp in season one, everyone was like, "Yo, like Chetonio is like a great side character. When's he coming back?" So then, when season three happened and we had all of those like returning characters, it was kind of it wasn't like an if, it was a when for Chetonio.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I did okay. The judge bot was like hilarious, but like I felt like that was a little too much
Yeah.
Frobo like nonsense
Yeah.
stuff. Like no, like I love the Frobo designs. It's like I think like that judge robot was kind of like that was a little
I think it
too
was too far.
yeah. It was just so
Yeah,
fun,
because
but
I
like
feel like
yeah, go ahead.
oh, uh, I was gonna say like yeah, because I feel like the design is I don't know. I felt like 3B isn't grounded per se, but like what's the word? Like it felt like the Frobots had like they felt natural in the setting. You know what I mean? But in like Newts and Tights, we got like why the fuck is Andreas building hooded Frobos and a goddamn judge Frobot? Why? Like, what's the point? Like, Andreas had to like actively build it. Like, there was no like, it wasn't like some accident or some shit or like the Frobots had like a conscience of their own. Well, actually, they might, considering what Fritzing Frobo says, but like, still, like that had to be built. Like, it just doesn't it weirdly like doesn't feel right when like I feel like Drie like with Cloakbot did like felt like
The perfect amount of like characterization for the
yeah and like
Frobots.
yeah like I felt like he felt natural too like in the setting itself he was like more of an advanced cloak Frobot with the cloaking stuff and we're in a more like modern setting so it made sense there he felt natural to the setting we're in and to like the characters arcs too but I think comparing not Frobot Cloakbot to the Judgebot may not be fair because Cloakbot's a whole like mini an arc villain there we go for 3A. So it's like it's a little different, but still like he felt natural. The judge bot feels like, okay, we're going too far. Like we're going like crazy now. I don't think we need to be doing that. There isn't a sense of like it being grounded, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, and at least with Spryview, like they gave us like that giant like crab robot. That still kind of felt like in theme with
yeah, and like
the show, I
oh you
guess.
go, keep going.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say because like also like that robot has like a legit logical function too. Because remember, like the the crab robot was like the thing keeping the force field up. You saw like a little what was it called?
It was like a
What was the power
generator or
thing called?
something.
Yeah, like you had that around it too. It felt like the robot had like a natural, obvious function with the world. Or fight or flight, like the robots were kidnapping the forget what the species Domino 2 is.
Like they're just called, I think,
Um
like killer coastal moths or
I'm gonna call it Kilomoths. Um they steal those and they have like a natural function of powering a base. Like it felt like there was like you could see the
the rules.
yeah, what the judge bot is like, why the fuck are you here? What purpose do you have? Like it was very strange. Very strange.
But I do like. Okay, do you want to keep talking about Newts and Tights?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Because I was saying like I'm down for going into fight or flight since you brought it up.
Um yeah, we can go into fight or flight now. I don't mind. Like if you have more to talk about Newts and Tights, we can keep going and then
Like I'm kind of
just
done with Newts and Tights.
oh, okay, then yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, but like you said with
Keep
fight or
going.
flight, yeah, like the rules behind it, where it's like okay, they're gathering up the moths to like power the generator, and then also in the beginning of the episode, you had like Soggy Joe mention the what's it called, the because Andrews was like uprooting everything, all the natural resources, all the animals were kind of like going out of the forest into like raiding their supply. So there's like cause and effect going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, but the main reason I liked that I love Fight or Flight is the just the how the ending, the series quote about the things you let go, what comes back to you. It's like okay, in this case, it's like Domino 2 is coming back to Anne.
Yeah.
And okay, this
Yeah.
came like out of total because okay, the Fight or Flight synopsis was like Anne goes on a
I
like
know you're gonna go with
Anne goes on a mission. I think you guys already covered it too in that episode. It's like oh, like Domino 2 was like out of left field.
it. Yeah, because it it was so funny because people are like, "Oh my god, like Anne's gonna go save a friend. It's gonna be Marcy, guys. Oh my gosh, we're gonna get an Anthony Darcy fight. Let's go!" And then it was Domino too. It was hilarious, yo, because there was no like promo or anything for this episode too. Really, like
Nope.
I know Matt gave something, I
Yeah,
think, and
that
then
but that had
thing.
Tritonio silhouette.
Oh yeah, so like Fight or Flight had nothing. So it was like, there's no way Darcy's in this episode. But I was like, 'cause I remember on Frog Court, I said like something on a whim, like watch it be like Domino 2 or some shit. That would be hilarious. And then it ended up being Domino 2. So
Okay, I know
that was
when this
hilarious.
episode aired, it was like I think Owl House was airing at the same time too, and
Yeah.
I know the stream that was happening was like Owl House was first, but then Nick and I decided to watch Amphibia first. So it was just like it was just us like DMing each other while the episode was airing, um, or like while the episode was being aired in on certain means, but but like and then the moment like Soggy Joe shows up, and and then Nick and I are just like, no shit, it's Soggy Joe, and then Domino 2 shows up. We're like, yo shit, it's Domino 2, and it's just like back to back us just like screaming like the capital letters in the DMs and then when we had like
That's amazing.
the proper watch along with like the rest of the guys, we were just like completely silent because we didn't want to say anything to like um oh man, but yeah, like I said, it's like the like this episode definitely felt like in line with like Amphibia's like with the finale's like core message by the end. So like yeah,
Yeah,
this
that's
episode
a
yeah,
yeah.
so this episode like kind of like definitely like aged very well, and then another Spran adventure before the finale that's and yeah, I think everyone talked about this already, but like the flight of the moth music, that was like one of the best tracks of
Yes.
season one. So it
Yeah.
coming back here was just like so satisfying.
Yeah.
And like of course like the crew didn't plan to have like from the very beginning. They didn't actually no. This was something Matt did plan from the very beginning of like Anne riding Domino 2. So it's like this was something that they wanted to bring back, but just like the Fly of the Moth the music, that was from like a completely different episode, but then having that like perfectly fit with this
Into this one.
into this one, which is kind of like a callback to like a completely different episode. Just like everything about Amphibia just like weaves in and out perfectly. It's like, oh man.
I feel like you can tell the crew is having a lot of fun with 3B, which is how much they set up from season one, and because they already had a lot of fun with it, I think during 2A. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but like I feel like with 3B, they just got to be like they got to reap the rewards, you know? So like they get to put the characters in all kinds of crazy scenarios and see where's Apothecary Gary at, where's Tritonio at, where's Domino 2 at. Like that's really fun. I always wonder if like there were any episodes that were cut. Like no, obviously there are like not like they made one and they removed it, but more like when they were like sketching out this season, like was there like any other characters they wanted to make come back? Like I'm not sure if Bog was supposed to get an episode or not.
Yeah, I think Bog
That was
was the
very
only
weird.
kind of like thing that didn't really get like. I feel like everything in season one that had a feeling like that could have came back did come back. Like I can't think of anything at the top of my head that was like,
I'm trying to think too, because I guess with me with Bog, I guess no, I'm not frustrated with Bog not coming back. I was like, I was like so shocked because like because I felt like Bog out of all characters was set up right in season two to show up again, and he does, but like it doesn't count. Like
yeah, it's like it's a
it
very like
doesn't
quick.
count.
It's
Like
a
you
very
get
like
again.
quick or you'll miss it
Yeah,
thing.
that's a fake comeback. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not real. Like so like I don't know. It was so weird, but I feel like I'm not like mad about it per se because like I guess I don't know the fandom didn't really talk about it. So, but I don't know. It was weird. Like it felt like there was an episode like instead of Barry was supposed to be Bog, but I feel like that's also way too obvious in the episode description. So like that it could be Bog in Sasha's Angels, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, I think I covered. Yeah, those are all the episodes I think that I missed that I wasn't here for. But
Mhm.
oh, we're about like an hour in. So yeah, I think Impact, do you have any like final thoughts on any of these episodes we just talked about?
Um, not on the episodes. I was thinking on your comment um about like criticism or not criticism, but talk about in like how season one isn't talked about a lot in terms of the community. I feel like weirdly enough, season three has like what's the word like because I think season 2 is talked about a lot in terms of
Oh,
analysis and stuff.
oh, I meant
But
like
like,
sorry, before you continue, like I think I was trying to mean like the way people kind of like analyze season 2 and 3. I don't think people do this. I don't think people treat season 1 with the same kind of like analysis that they do for season 2
yeah,
and 3, but I do think season 1 still has a lot of stuff there, even without the even without the callbacks that season 2 and 3 do to season 1.
I gotcha. I guess because I guess what I was trying to say was more like, I don't know. Season 3 is like, because you say season 2 and 3 get more analysis, and I agree. I feel like season 2 definitely gets a lot more than 3 did. I feel like it's weird because 3 is like, I feel like it got analysis, but like at the same time, I feel like it didn't either. If that makes sense. Like, I feel like when people talk about season 3 analysis, they're talking about like the lore episodes, not the lore episodes, but like Olivia and Yunan, Turning Point, and like Anne's arc isn't really talked about that much. You know what I mean? Like it's usually on those two characters, and even 3B like kind of sorta does, but like I don't know. I maybe it's just because I wasn't in the fandom during season 2, but like when because I had the chance to see all the analysis like after season 2 ended, right? So like I got to see what everyone was thinking or like big talking in community about it, maybe on Tumblr or Reddit, written stuff pretty much, not like active talking. So like, but with season 3, it was weird. I felt like it was kind of sporadic when people were talking about the show. I don't know. I feel like season 3 is in a weird middle ground from what I notice, like in terms of like conversation on the show, like especially in terms of like a consensus on it is so like varied. So I don't know. I feel like season 3 is in its own bubble compared to like 1 and 2, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that.
I do think it's because season 2 is like the middle. There's still like a lot of room for speculation. So like when season 2 was coming out and after season 2, there's like a lot of the discussion is speculation, and then season 3 comes
Yeah.
around and it's like kind of like, I don't want to say shutting down the speculation, but kind of like it's more like retrospective analysis. It's not like, oh, it's
Yeah.
not what you think is going to happen, but it's like how you feel about what happened.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. Cause I think what's the word? I don't know, because I feel like when talking about stuff that's in the episode specifically, like especially in terms of like themes of the show or like some of the messages of it, you really only get that in the hardest thing. But like the hardest thing when we people talk about that episode, because like that episode's themes are like drilled into your head. You know what I mean? Like it is saying like change is like it is saying the word change a lot in that finale. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, but like in terms of like maybe this is like maybe unfair for me to say not to say about the fandom, but like Escape to Amphibia is a good example of an episode that weirdly isn't talked about, and I kind of get why, but like it's the climax of Anne's arc in season 3. It plays a big part in her leaving the planters in the hardest thing, and like it's again it's a culmination of Anne's arc throughout the season, and like no one talked about it. And I guess because it this episode means a lot more in retrospect when we had the hardest thing, we had Anne leaving the planters behind. But I don't know, it was just like it was it was weird because I think everything in 3A besides the girls isn't really talked about a lot. or it's other discussion I won't get into right now. But like, I don't know. Season three is really sporadic in its analysis to me compared to two, where I felt like not every episode was talked about, obviously, but I felt like there was like a solid stream of discussion of each episode, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's my observation anyway.
Hmm. Yeah, like I mean, it's only gonna be a year since the series ended, so I feel like maybe in like
Oops.
2 more years we'll get like a good idea about like how. Because look, like in a year or two, like all of the like all the how do you describe it?
You know, you know this.
It's like over time, like all of the how do I describe this? It's like the oh my god. It's just the way people look at the show is gonna be a lot different in like a year or two. Like it happened with Gravity Falls. It happened with Starverse. Like I don't want to say I want to say revisionist like history, but like I don't mean it in like a negative way. Actually, there's a negative and a positive side to this, where it's like all of like the week to week, um, I guess debate in the Amphibia like fandom after each episode came out. That's kind of gonna like not be. It's going to become like a footnote to the overall like peaks and valleys of like the show itself. And then if Amphibia's advantage is that when it needs to peak, it it it's like the highest peaks ever, like Reunion,
Yeah.
True Colors, or the hardest thing. It's
Yeah.
like it hits when it needs to I guess the general audience. And like you said, because the hardest thing like drilled like the themes of the show have been like drilled into people's heads throughout the show, even before you get to the
Yeah.
finale. That's what makes the finale like hit so hard for Reunion, True Colors, hardest thing. That like Amphibious reception is gonna be like it's going to stay positive. I think. Like I think I talked to Nick about this like last year, where it's like, oh, maybe we have to like we kind of have to wait and see.
Hmm.
And then looking back, it's like now that people have kind of like processed the finale, it's like it's very positive. And because the finale is positive, it's like that just like uplifts the whole show in general.
Yeah. I think I guess like I've been noticing a change in the fandom's talk about it, um, of like the series in general. And I guess I focus so much in season three because that's when I joined the fandom, right? But I do notice that there's like a shift now. Maybe like I'm not sure if anyone else has figured this out, but like I feel like the people I don't remember people not liking 3B when it was airing. But now like nowadays it gets a lot more flack, I notice. Um and usually the 3A stuff is like most people don't know. I can't like no one knows what the fuck we're talking about if you weren't watching it weekly. I feel like when you binge Amphibia, you don't really know what we're talking about to a certain degree, or like the problems that people had with the season don't mean as much to you. So like,
And it's probably for the
and the
best.
whole yeah, you know, yeah, because I don't know. I won't go into it because I did think there's some good points there, but like they talk the fandom talked about it for like 1,000 years, and it was like, okay, guys. Like, but anyway, point is like I noticed that 3B is getting a lot more flack now, and that's interesting because I don't remember 3B getting that when it was airing. So I'm wondering how, like, in a year, what different parts of the show people are gonna focus on a little more. Like, is because I do feel like some things are not set in stone, but like they do stay stagnant in the show's perception. So I'm wondering if, like, what is gonna stay there after a year or two. You know what I mean? Like, what's a criticism people are gonna be like, that's valid, and then be like, okay, but the rest of the show was good, and then like the end. So I don't know. It's interesting seeing fandom's thoughts change over time. I feel like that's something fandoms don't talk about that much when, like, having like a retrospective on YouTube or something, or fandom talk like on any other website, Twitter, Reddit, whatever. When people discuss what this fandom does or what this fandom acts like, there's like almost a there's never a thought about change and how people's opinions evolve and how a fandom's opinion can evolve throughout years. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting to see though, like with the subreddit or I don't check Twitter discussion that much anymore, so I don't know what they're talking about anymore. But I don't know. It's interesting to see.
But yeah, like how that uh yeah, how those like views change over time, I think is like once we get into our season retrospectives, it's like that's gonna be something interesting to talk about and something
Yeah,
that we'll have time to like kind of like go deep into because like yeah, not a lot of I don't see a lot of talk about like how we first saw this and then how we see it now. It's kind of more like I feel like okay, hopefully I'm what the hell, this is like a filler recording. It's kind of like fandoms get kind of like very like nostalgic, and I think mm, I'm,
I
I
think.
think the Gravity Falls fandom kind of gets a little too nostalgic when they talk about the show.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
I mean, I was there day one when it first premiered, so like, like, I've been there start to finish. It's like, but that's a battle for another day.
Okay.
But I think yeah, I'll say that for the retrospective talk. Maybe
Yeah.
when we talk about like Wax Museum again, because I know Nick has some like some opinions on that.
Okay. Okay.
On that record, like he mentioned it in the in that episode, but that's just me kind of getting off topic. But
Yeah.
I'm yeah, that concludes this week's recording. Thank you for listening to this, and I'm still coming up with some topics for like the next few recordings, but something that's definitely like that we'll definitely do is like season retrospectives of like the first half of season one, second half of season one, and then etc. with season two and three. Like those are things that I definitely wanted to do,
Okay.
but we'll probably sprinkle like other ideas into the recordings. But I'm just letting you guys know like that's something that we'll talk about. It's not gonna be like it's not an essay or anything. It's still gonna be like a regular conversation, but that's something I kind of want to get like notes on, or more substantial notes than than a couple of like thoughts that I scrambled down on my phone. But again, thank you for listening, and see you guys next time. Say goodbye, everyone.
Peace, everybody.
See ya.
Just peace me.
Yeah, just you. But yeah, see you guys.
Yeah.